Okay, so there's actually been a little bit of a change in schedule in terms of the rest of the semester. We were going to have a final after the Unit 3 assessment, but there's been some changes because we'll be piloting a new program, which means just basically trying it out next semester, where our curriculum will change a little bit for algebra. So to try to fit some things in, we're doing what we were going to do when we get back from break. We're going to go ahead and do that now before Christmas, and there will not be a final. So instead of a final, there will just be a short quiz over these 2 lessons that we're going to do. So it's actually easier on you guys. So starting off, this lesson is arithmetic and sequences. The other one we will do will be geometric sequences. Basically, it's a pattern. So you're looking for a pattern, and then we will write some formulas to kind of find so many certain numbers in the pattern or the sequence, okay? So a sequence is just an ordered list of numbers. Each number is called a term, more specifically. And then an arithmetic sequence, which is what we're looking at today, is an ordered list of numbers in which the same number is being added or subtracted. Really, subtraction, you're going to think add a negative. Okay, and then the common difference you will see a lot. So this kind of got cut off here, I apologize, but that is the number that is being added between each term. So if you look like on this sequence right here, 5 to 10, well, that's up 5, 10 to 15, up 5, 15 to 20, up 5, okay? So since it's adding, that is an arithmetic sequence, and then my common difference would be that 5. Okay, so if you're trying to find the next terms in a sequence, they're going to give you a list or the sequence. So here we start off with -7, -14, -21, -28. All right, well, these negatives are kind of getting bigger in a sense. We know that actually means smaller, but the number is getting larger. So you want to see, and if you need, use your calculator to kind of play around with what's happening and make sure you have the right number. Well, I know -7 to -14 is subtracting 7, or you can really think of it as adding -7. Check on your calculator and make sure that is still working each time. So you always want to check, because when we get into the other type of sequences, it's going to be a little bit different. Like it's not going to look like the same thing each time. All right, so number 1, identify the common difference, what happened between each term. That is your first step, and that is our 7. So they added -7, so I'm just going to say CD for short. So this CD, or the common difference, would be -7. A lot of times they're just going to ask you that. Step 2 is add the common difference to the sequence as many times as is called for. You may be adding a negative. So for this question, they said write the next 3 terms. So I want to do -28 minus 7. So that would be -35. And then I do it again to get -42. And one more time to get -49. Okay, so sometimes they're going to tell you, like, find the next 3, find the next 5. Sometimes they may say, like, find the 25th term, okay? All right, so number 1, I want you guys to go ahead and pause the video and give this one a try. When you click play, I will have the answers filled in, so make sure you do pause it, or you're going to see all of them, and I want you to try to practice. Okay, hopefully you're checking your answer. So the common difference was +12. They were adding 12 between each term, which then gave us 36, 48, and 60. Okay, now 2, maybe a little bit tougher since it is a decimal, but remember you can utilize your calculator to kind of help figure out what that number is. So you should see, I kind of thought, well, yes, it's a decimal, but 2 to 6 is 4, so that's going to be plus 0.4. And then I checked it. Yes, that works to give you 1, and then that works to give you 1.4, and those were adding. All right, so I just want to do that 3 more times. So again, take a pause and try to figure those out. Okay, you should be checking your answer and should have gotten 1.8, 2.2, and 2.6. Real quick, these little dots here just show that that sequence or that pattern is continuing on, but we're not telling all of those things there, okay? All right, now we get to a little bit more confusing part of these lessons. So we have what's called recursive and explicit formulas. The recursive formula is written as two parts, okay? So it has this A1 equals first term of the sequence, and then this part down here. Good thing is you do get these formulas given to you on the quiz and the test, so you don't have to memorize them. You do have to know which one, like which is recursive and which is explicit, okay? For arithmetic sequences, I just think, oh, well, they have the A, so that's arithmetic. So that's pretty easy to remember that part. You're going to kind of do the same thing as we did on those first questions, but now you're plugging into this somewhat complicated looking formula. And to be honest, I don't memorize the formula either. I just kind of look at it on my formula sheet, so don't feel like you have to memorize that. All right, so I'm going to show you how this is set up. So if this is my pattern right here, my sequence, all right, has 12, 7, and 2. Well, 12 to 7, they minus 5. 7 to 2, they minus 5. So that is an arithmetic because it is either minusing 5 or adding negative, either way you think of it. So this first one here, and it's kind of transferred a little funky in my formatting. Technically, it should look with the little one at the bottom like this does. It just didn't really transfer over right. So A1 is the first term. So what did they tell you first? Well, that was 12. So that is my A1. That's all I write there. So that's pretty short. Same thing happened with my formatting here. It should have been AN equals AN minus 1 plus D. Okay. I filled in this part for you, but like I said, we're going to look at this one here. So plus D, that's what we're trying to find. D is the common difference. Actually, I'm going to write that up here instead. I would write this down. That's the common difference, or that number that's being added. All right, so we already found that. It was -5, so I would say A to N equals A N minus 1 plus, you can either put plus -5, or you can just change that plus to a minus. Either way is fine, okay? All right, so that's how we would do that first one. So I want you to take a pause and see if you can do number 4. Remember, this was supposed to look like A1 and AN. Okay, if you are checking your answer, the first term, or A1, was 2, and then for the second part of the recursive sequence, I would say AN equals, this is an A, N minus 1 plus 6. 6 was the common difference. We will start to plug in a number for N, but if they just want that formula, that's what we're looking at. Okay, and the last part of today's lesson is looking at explicit formulas. So the first ones we did were the recursive. Second is explicit. So how I told kids to remember which was which last year was that recursive formulas are the longer one. Like it had the 2 lines. It had A1 equals blah, 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 AN equals blah, blah, blah. And recursive only has this one, or explicit, sorry, only has this one. So explicit is a shorter word. Shorter formula. Okay, so that's not super technical, but that was kind of, it really helped them remember which was which, okay? Because it will not say on your test, it'll just give you the actual formulas. All right, so this kind of shows you this formula setup. Says A1 represents the first term of the sequence, N represents what number of the term you are solving for, so like what they tell you to find, and D represents the common difference. So that part is still the same. So if they want us to write an explicit equation for the nth term, if it just says nth, that means we're leaving in as it is. We're not plugging a number in for it first, okay? So here's our sequence then. I actually want you to go ahead and just take this part off. We're gonna wait on that. So if I'm writing my explicit equation, I want to start and kind of find that common difference. Well, 14 to 11 to 8 to 5. That's a common difference of -3, because I know I'm going to need that in a little bit, okay? So step one, I just want you to write the formula to kind of get you familiarized. So AN equals A1 plus N minus 1, and then this means multiply by D, so it may be easier for you to remember to put it in parentheses like that, okay? So now plug in A1, D, and N. Not N, just A1 and D right now, okay? And so A1 is always your first term. So A1 equals 14. So I'm going to leave N right now, okay? So A1, instead of A1, I'm putting 14 plus, leaving N here. Okay, and then D is the common difference. I guess I could have just written D here instead of CD. So my common difference was -3. Just a reminder here, do not write -3 like that. Your calculator is going to read that as subtract. So you have to put that in the parentheses to show that you're multiplying, okay? All right, now step 3 says simplify the equation. So here you want to like distribute, combine like terms, things like that, all right? Well, the -3, it's kind of backwards distribution, but I can distribute to the left here. So probably shouldn't add an extra line, maybe write small. So 14 plus -3 times n is -3n. -3 times -1 is +3. Okay, well now I can combine 14 and 3. So AN equals -3n doesn't have a like term here, so I'll just stick that at the front. And then 3 and 14 gives us 17. Okay, so that would be my simplified equation. There is a question similar to that will be on your quiz where you have to simplify like that, okay? All right, so write an explicit equation for each arithmetic sequence, then find the 10th term. For some reason I wrote that differently up there. So start with your equation like we did up here. So 8 to 16 to 24 to 32. That is adding 8. Sometimes they can put FN. It's not very typical, but just so that you are aware that that could happen. So it could be FN or it could be 8 to the n, all right? So now I want to look at my formula here, all right? My first thing is A1. Well, the first term of that sequence is 8, all right? Then I have a plus sign, and then I do n minus 1 multiplied by the common difference was 8. Okay, remember to simplify that when you can. So if I distribute my 8, that would be 8n minus 8, and then I combine, well, 8 and -8 actually cancels out and gives me 0. So my final answer would be an or f of n, either way, equals 8n. Okay, now the 10th term. When you are looking for a specific term, you are plugging that number in for n and solve. Okay, I can use this simplified formula I already did. So I'm going to say a to the 10th, because I'm finding the 10th term of that arithmetic sequence, would be 8. And then 8n means times. So I'm going to do 8 times, plug 10 in for n. So a to the 10th term would be 80. If you had plugged it into the equation or the formula here before we simplified, that will still work, okay? So like if I had done a to the 10th or the 10th term equals 8 plus 10 minus 1 times 8. That still comes out to 80, okay? So if you forget to simplify and plug in, you would still get the right answer if you had written your original correctly, okay? All right, so I want you guys to pause and give number 2 a try. Okay, so originally this is what you would have for your equation. Common difference was -1. The first term was 1. But I do need to simplify. I can distribute my -1. So that would give me, left side stays the same. All right, 1 plus -1 times n is -1n. You can also just write that as -n. And then -1 times -1 is +1. To combine my 1's, I have to write this over here. So an equals 2 plus, actually, I'm going to change that to 2 minus n. Remember, that's the same as 1n. Could have left that either way. You could also put it as -n plus 2. That would be correct as well. All right, and now if I'm finding the 10th term, so you're going to plug in 10 for n, so n equals 10. So I take a pause and try to solve that. Okay, so if I plugged in 10, so I just put it right into this. So 2 minus 10 gives you the 10th term of this arithmetic sequence would be -8. All right, there will be a homework assignment for today, so make sure you are checking that and getting it submitted. Have a good day.